Suddenly, Diesel's engine coughed. Then it started to splutter. Black, smelly smoke billowed from his exhaust. I feel sick, wailed Diesel. Mavis started billowing smoke too. So do I, she groaned. The quarry manager was upset. It's the new fuel, he cried. Water must have leaked into the tanks. Soon all the other Diesels had broken down. Ari, Bert, and even Salty had ground to a halt. So Sir Topham Hatt telephoned the quarry manager. And the quarry manager came to see Thomas. You are to collect fresh diesel from the fuel depot. Right away, sir, whistled Thomas. And he steamed out of the quarry as fast as he could. At last, he arrived at the fuel depot. Give me all the clean fuel you've got, Thomas cried. This is an emergency. We'll soon have you loaded, said the workman. Thomas was soon loaded with trucks carrying fuel drums. The fuel drums were very heavy. Thomas pushed with all his might. His pistons creaked and his wheels squeaked, but he kept on puffing. Thomas trundled all over the island with fresh fuel for everybody. For Salty, for Ari, and for Bert. Thomas was feeling very tired, but he still had one more delivery to make. At the quarry, all work had stopped. Diesel was as green as a leaf. Mavis was feeling very glum. Then they heard a wonderful noise. It was Thomas! He steamed into the quarry with one final puff. I made it, he cried. Mavis and Diesel had all the bad fuel drained out of their engines, and all the good clean fuel poured in. Marvelous, sighed Diesel. Thank you, Thomas, purred Mavis. Soon the quarry was clattering with the sound of work. And finally, the important job was done. Sir Topham Hatt arrived on board Percy. Well done, Thomas, boomed Sir Topham Hatt. You have saved the day. You are a really useful engine and a credit to the railway. Thank you, sir, puffed Thomas proudly. And even Diesel had to admit that Thomas is a very special engine. Even if he is a steamy. Here are some dots. If we join the dots, we will see one of the engines on Sir Topham Hatt's railway. I wonder which engine that is. Let's join the dots and find out. Here we go. There's a large tender, the cab, and there's the dome. This is a very big engine. It's got a very small funnel. Can you tell who it is yet? Around the buffers and the wheels, it's got lots of wheels. Do you know who it is? That's right. It's Gordon. Hello, Gordon. There are many different engines on Sir Topham Hatt's railway. And there are many different sounds. Let's listen to some of them. Thomas is a steam engine. When he puffs along, he sounds very different from Mavis, who is a diesel engine. Can you hear the difference? Thomas and Mavis. When Thomas collects coal from the coal yard, the coal sounds very different from the gravel Mavis collects from the quarry. The coal, the gravel. When Thomas chuffs happily across the stone bridge, he sounds very different to Mavis when she trundles over the steel bridge. The stone bridge, the steel bridge. Finally, when Thomas arrives at Brendam Docks, he applies his brakes. Thomas's brakes sound like this. Whereas Mavis's brakes sound like this. Thomas and Mavis. On the island of Sodor, there are always so many different jobs to do, and also many different sounds to hear. It was a splendid day on the island of Sodor. Thomas was taking Annie and Clarabelle back to the yards. A new engine had arrived and he wanted to say hello. The engine was beautiful, with shiny paintwork and a gleaming brass dome. Thomas, meet Emily. Hello, Emily. Hello, Thomas. Emily, collect your coaches. You and your driver must learn the line. Yes, sir, she answered. Thomas was impressed. Later, the only coaches Emily's driver could find were Annie and Clarabelle. These aren't your sort of coaches, he said, but I suppose they'll do. Annie and Clarabelle felt insulted. How dare he say will do, Clarabelle whispered. Emily puffed carefully along the track. How dare he say will do? How dare he say will do? Grumbled the coaches. Thomas saw Emily coming down the line, pulling Annie and Clarabelle. Hello, Thomas, Emily called. But Thomas was cross. Those are my coaches. Give them back! But Emily didn't hear Thomas and she went on her way. Then Edward passed. And Percy. When Emily whistled hello, the engines didn't whistle back. Emily couldn't understand why they were so unfriendly. She was upset. Later, Sir Topham Hatt spoke to Thomas. I want you to go to the docks to pick up new coaches. New coaches? But, sir... Really useful engines don't argue, said Sir Topham Hatt. Thomas didn't want new coaches. He wanted Annie and Clarabelle back. When Oliver saw Emily return to the yards, he was surprised. Those are Thomas's coaches. So that's why he looked cross, exclaimed Emily. I'll go and apologize. Don't want new coaches, don't want new coaches, chuffed Thomas. Later, Emily was still looking for Thomas when a signalman flagged her down. Oliver hasn't cleared his signal box, he told Emily's driver. Please go and see what's wrong. Emily could see that Oliver had broken down on the crossing. Then Emily heard Thomas's whistle. Oh dear! Thomas could see Oliver. He knew he could never stop in time. Help! Emily charged towards Oliver. And with a huge effort, pushed him across the tracks. Just in time. Thanks. We did it. Later, Sir Topham Hatt praised Emily. Well done. You were a very brave engine. The bravest, chuffed Oliver. It gives me great pleasure to present you with 2 new coaches. Thank you, sir, replied Emily. Thomas, I'm sorry I took Annie and Clarabelle. And I'm sorry I was so cross, replied Thomas. Friends? Friends! Emily loves her coaches and being part of Sir Topham Hatt's railway. Each engine on the island of Sodor looks different. Can you tell who is who? This engine is green. It has large wheels. In fact, the whole engine looks very large. There's a coal tender at the back. Do you know who it is yet? Here's another clue. On the side is a big yellow number 3. Have you guessed? It's Henry. Hello, Henry. Now, who is next? This engine is a completely different shape. The wheels are covered. It has cow catchers on the front and on the back. And there are 2 small windows on each side. This engine is made of wood, and it has a big number 7 painted on the side. Who could it be? That's right, it's Toby. Hello, Toby. Now, do you know who this last engine is? This engine is smaller than Henry. It has flat water tanks on each side, painted in a beautiful bright blue, with bright red stripes. Can you guess who it is? There are wheel arches at the front, and a tall black funnel, and a big yellow number 1. Who is number 1 on Sir Topham Hatt's railway? It's Thomas. Hello, Thomas. Thomas, Toby, and Henry all look very different, but they're all really useful engines. It was summertime on the island of Sodor. Gordon pulled the passenger express. It was very busy, but Gordon loved the hustle and bustle. Henry hauled freight cars in the forest. He loved the peace and quiet, but he didn't see many people. Sometimes working in the forest could be very lonely. Later, Henry pulled into Knapford Station. He was delighted to see all the passengers. But Gordon was not delighted to see Henry. "Keep your smelly freight away from my passengers," grumbled Gordon. "But it's only logs," chuffed Henry. "Passengers and freight do not mix," huffed Gordon, and he wheeshed away. Henry watched the express leave the station. "I'd like to pull passengers," sighed Henry, "just for a change." Henry stopped at the water tank on the edge of the forest. children were standing by one of the trees. "What are those children doing?" Henry asked Thomas. "That's the old Sodor wishing tree," said Thomas. "They must be making a wish." "A wishing tree?" gasped Henry. "How wonderful!" "Do you think it could make my wish come true?" asked Henry. "It might," said Thomas, and he puffed away. Henry rolled up to the wishing tree. He took a deep breath and made a wish, as hard as he could. I wish I could pull the express instead of Gordon," he said. That evening, Sir Topham Hatt came to see Henry. "Tomorrow, you will pull the express," he said. "Thank you, sir," said Henry happily. His wish had come true. The next morning, Henry chuffed cheerfully into Knapford Station. When his passengers were on board, Henry blew his whistle.